This is Calcat, the Calcatster, and this is a review of Starship Lower Decks Season 4, Episode 9, the penultimate episode, the Calcat episode. But there's two, by the way, 9 and 10. Yes, this episode acknowledges the existence of our series. But yeah, why don't we should have more subscribers on this channel because we keep predicting stuff. We're on the same wavelength. Yeah, it's weird. So this episode is apparently, the whole series is apparently set in the universe where Nick Locarno is around and Cito Jaxa was killed. But, yeah, so how do we explain all that? And they reference Cito Jaxa. They say the Mariner was a friend of Cito Jaxa, which makes, actually kind of retcons the age to more closer to the actor. However, even with that, she wouldn't have been, she couldn't possibly have been an ensign during the Wolf 359. Not. So they clarify that. They have her. So basically, they have her mention that it was the Dominion War, not the Borg, not Wolf 359, the Dominion War. That makes more sense. The Dominion War. So that would have been 2375, and it's now in that series 2383. So she would be, it would have been 7 or 8 years ago. So that makes sense. Yeah, so she's still in her late 20s. She's not in her 30s. So that's what Savage Mariner. She's in the late 20s. But somehow she knew of Cito Jaxa, so she's... Yeah, Cito Jaxa was presumably 19 in 2368 in that episode, where she was ridiculously and unceremoniously destroyed, but with the Cardassian. She was captured, come on, she was captured. But in this universe, apparently they didn't check. Unlike in Sillian space. Or in Sillian space, maybe they brought her back, and she and Locarno and all of those people are actually part of the Sillian thing the whole time, which would be consistent with Season 3, Star Destinations. The current in post-production series of our series. So they're aware of us at Lower Decks, and they're like, okay, we don't want to do exactly what you did, so we're gonna mention Cito, but we're not gonna. We're gonna make it look like she died and there was no Starship Chimera and all that stuff. But it's 2383 in the story. It's 2383 in the story. Keep that in mind. Starship Chimera takes place in 2388, 5 years later. They just don't know. Now, it still works. All right, so the episode is they have an episode where they're trying to figure out where all this thing is destroying all these ships, and it's like blasting them, and then on the planet, and different cruisers, Klingons, Cardassians, Ferengis, Romulans, Orions, they're all captured by and they're all down on this planet that has glass rain, and well, basically, earlier on, they send Mariner and some of the lower deckers, but not Rutherford, to the planet, to this rain planet, to find out what's going on, get the transmitter and stuff. There's a bird of prey in orbit that's chasing around, doing stuff, which they will later commandeer in the story. Spoiler. Of course, they have to have a bird of prey. And they're looking for Nicholas Locarno. So they've sent the captain and the others to look for Nicholas Locarno, and they kind of do the Star Wars thing. They have somebody in disguise as a bounty hunter to get into the bar. It's pretty obvious where they were going with that one. But who pops out of it was kind of not obvious. The Brian Story sort of engineer guy pops out. So yeah, he pops out. They mentioned like Nicholas Locarno. They mentioned that he's a rogue, and they got to go find him. And apparently, he's somehow behind the thingy. The thingy. Also, Robbie McNeil. He's behind the alien ship, and he wants to start trouble. I'm not sure exactly how he would get that tech of that thing that blows up ships and beams people down to planets. It's Sillian tech, clearly. He's got an old Sillian device. And he's clearly the mirror universe, Nick Locarno. Or the universe is living in this other universe. And it's entirely possible that Mariner, being in her late 20s in the story, not in her early 20s, is not the actress. The actress is in her 30s, but the Mariner herself is is not aware that Cedo was rescued, and maybe it's kind of a secret. Maybe she shows up. They wouldn't have mentioned her if they weren't going to do the bait and switch. If they do that, it's even more Sillian realms. They do that in the finale, and they have her show up and have her go like, "Oh yeah, I was on a Cardassian prison planet, and so was Carno, and we were on a Cardassian prison planet." And it's all part of Section 31 and stuff like that. That would be great. They would redeem that character, because that was really, really strange that they offed the gold shirt like they do the red shirts, and didn't check and look into it. In the Sillian Realms saga, there was a Battle of Beta Z. It was part of the opening of the story in that. And in the Battle of Beta Z, there was a starship Exeter, which was a Voyager class ship. It was a Intrepid class ship like the Voyager, and it under Captain Sarah Esteban. She goes down to the planet. They go to Daklala camp, and they rescue 4 Earth humans from the planet. They rescue a Bajoran, a Klingon, and 2 humans from the planet. And that's where they meet Nick Locarno, who's been in a Cardassian prison during the Dominion War. So it's the end of the Dominion War. It's like 2376. Late 2375, early 2370. And so the Enterprise E, of course, is going to show up. But the Exeter is attacked brutally by the Dominion as they're coming in. And they're all on the Exeter. All 4 of them are in sickbay recovering. The bridge is damaged. The captain is injured. And so Nicholas Locarno, being a former Starfleet officer and able to do that kind of stuff, and the one that's not gravely injured, the other 2 are kind of messed up. He says, let's go to the auxiliary control and take command of the ship and rescue it in time for the Enterprise E to show up. They don't necessarily know it's the Enterprise E is going to be there, but it is. And so they go to the auxiliary control and they rescue the ship, get it out of the Dominion fight zone, basically. And then the Enterprise E shows up. Yay, Captain Picard! And Captain Picard is all shocked. This would make an awesome Lower Decks episode, actually. But it's the backstory of Starship Chimera, the series, the fan film series. And some others have brought back Cedo as well. In fact, earlier in Lower Decks, they had characters that were similar to Cedo. So I think they're going to pull a bait and switch. Maybe they won't. Maybe they won't go there. But if they do, yeah, they're totally aware of our fan films. Completely, and they're watching them. And they're like, oh, these are neat. Yeah, Nick Locarno should be But anyway, so the Dominion story was whatever. At the same time, Beckett Mariner could have been on the Exeter as an ensign. She could have been there during the Dominion War. But then she would know. And she'd be like, they recovered these people from sickbay, and what's my friend Cedar Jack said she was there. But she probably wasn't. Maybe her ship was somewhere else during the Battle of Beta. But I think she probably was there. But anyway, so they brought her back, and then Picard was distraught, of course. They didn't bother to rescue her for some reason. They thought surely she was killed, a dozen years later in that episode of Next Generation, in Lower Decks, the episode. But that's the DNA of the episode. It's like Locarno, and then the reason that they made Locarno into Paris is they wanted to they didn't want to explore the Nick Locarno thing. He was irredeemable at that point, which is why in the fan film is this 2019? We were like, they when it came out in 2019, but we wrote the script in 2006, so it's way back, and it was filmed between 2012 and 2019, and so our idea was to bring these people back because we wanted them to be the main people in the story. So we put Nick Locarno is redeemed by the war, saving the ship, and served with honor on the ship and on the Enterprise, in fact. along with Cedo Jaxa, and a young Krass and a young Mahoney went to the academy, and Krass to Klingon, and they became Starfleet officers. And then 2388, they're the young crew of the starship Chimera going on a mission. And Mariner probably was there somewhere in the background, but maybe not on that ship. Maybe she was serving on another ship and wasn't aware of that ship. Maybe the Chimera is, because it goes into Silly Trek space all the time, maybe they don't want to tell them everything that happens there. Maybe it's a secret. Maybe it's like a state Starfleet secret. Whatever the Chimera does when it goes into silly spaces is a secret, so we're not going to tell you. So this is Section 31 stuff, but yeah, in terms of the series arc, that is the Chimera starship locations, of which Chimera is part. The sequel series takes place in 2401 to 2404. This is the current season now, 2404. And it's several years after the events of Lower Decks. It's 20 years after the events of Lower Decks. So we have the characters are quite a bit different. We do encounter some of the Lower Deckers in seasons there. And we encounter Cedo Jaxa as a commander. And we see her, she's been rescued and everything's fine now. She's a little off, but she's fine. And the fourth season redeems her even more. I will not give away spoilers for the fourth season. Go to Starship Locations, Chimera website, even more. She appears at least twice in there. But yes, so yeah, she's not dead in Sillian space. Also, Sillian space may have revived her, Locarno, and all those other people to the estimate. It's possible that it's entirely a different universe where that's going on. In which case, yeah, she'd be dead in Mariner's universe, but not in the Sillian universe. They do that all the time there. So, yeah, maybe Duklala Camp which was blown up. They torpedoed it afterward in 2402. The Chimera one was lost. Maybe it would be a fun one. Maybe she thinks that she was killed on the Chimera A, which was lost in 2396. But that would be later, 2396, 13 years after this episode. And then the Chimera A was commissioned in 2401, 2400 or so. 2399, 2400, somewhere around there. And this is the Chimera A in Starship Location. So it is, it's got to be connected to the fan film somehow, which is interesting because we don't have a lot of subscribers, but we have a lot of videos on our channels, and they know about CalCat. They do. There was a Cal in Starship Discovery. Twice. It's a renegade guy. It's kind of what they're doing here. But yeah, we redeemed Nick Locarno. And we dealt with that story in Starship Chimera, the Destiny Device. Dealt with the Cedo story. So yeah, as for the episode, making a lot of wild speculation, and that's fine. Because we know that technically they can't possibly know this guy's fan film in San Jose. I mean, come on. But it is interesting that it's similar enough and they reference it enough that and to throw off her age a little bit, that she's older than they are. But she's not in her 30s in the story. She's actually, and she's acting like a Pine Hill student. Maybe the twist is that all of them are in an alternate timeline and all of them are in Silly Trek space. She's not. That'd be interesting. But no, So the story, the emphasis of the story is that Beckett Mariner has to go down to the planet to because they sent her on this mission they think is not going to be that hard because she's depressed and she's angry about being promoted, which is a very Silly Trek thing, by the way. But yeah, whereas there's two kinds of Sillians. There's the kind that like their Q-like powers and can do whatever they want and become ambitious and super excited. And there's several kinds, but there's varying degrees, right? Mariner is the other kind that doesn't want their powers. That's like running around going like, I don't want this extra thing. I don't like being here. I'm bored and all that. So there's the students that liked being in the Silly Trek. And then the students that are bored. The Borg. So she's a Borg. That's what she is. She is a Pine Hillian, definitely. Um, yeah. No, what's interesting is Tendy's character, who being from royalty, is a Valley Christian, Valley Christian from Pine Hill, the rival school of Pine Hill. She's from the rival school, but they're friends with the other one because she's friends with her. She's a Valley religious. No, she's a Valley Christian person. She's from that other school across the street. She's that ambitious, excitable, outgoing kind of character. And Boimler is sort of the messy type, sort of the goofball character. Also a little bit like Henry Barrister or Brister from the series. Also a little Mad Mad. The goofball, outgoing, sort of self-effacing character that is the Star Trek fan, the archetype for the whole thing. He's the Star Trek fan. He can go out there. Also, a little bit of the board is also Rutherford, who is literally a transhuman, not a transsexual, well, maybe transsexual, transhuman. And he's partly machine, partly an android. That's another kind of Sillian. That's a Sillian that puts on the android features and stuff and goes out and does their thing. Cause also excitable, outgoing, gregarious. That's a different kind. Yeah. So he'd be the jock of Pine Hill thing. And also, in a way, he's the nerd too. He's sort of the nerd. He's sort of the big guy kind of guy. And there's the captain, the officer is a big guy. So there's all these archetypes of the John Hughes type of class going on. We also have, yeah, and as I mentioned before, the captain herself, the Freeman, is Libby from Pine Hill, but as black, which is fun. Because Libby from Pine Hill was white. That's fine. And her daughter is Mariner. That makes perfect sense. That works. That would happen. That totally makes sense. Although Libby would be like, what, 50 now? Yeah, she could have a kid in her 20s easily. But yeah. Or she could be Latanya from the cast who was black. She could be. That also would work. She could be Latanya's daughter. Which would be cool from Pine Hill. That'd be neat. So that could be too. It could be she's modeled after that. I'm sure she's not. I'm just saying that there's the kind of archetypes that go with Sillian space. This easily fits. I think they will find a way to redeem in their own way the Locarno thing, because it's being mentioned in this episode, and Cedo Jax. I think they wouldn't mention it. They wouldn't just throw it out there if they weren't going to do something with that. What's behind the whole thing in 2383? They still could redeem them and put them in they could still do that. They could still have. It's a little bit different because it's a different universe. I think all of these newer Star Treks are a different universe. I think ever since the Abrams 2009 movie and Spock going back from the supernova thing changed that timeline so that all of the J.J. Abrams and the Callis movies, all of those, they're all a different, slightly different timeline because it's a multiverse, different timeline. And Discovery is clearly a different timeline. And having them go way off in the future pushes it downwind so they don't have to deal with it. They probably shouldn't have done that because they really need to pull them back from the future to the present, to their present, and fix that. We don't do that in ours. We do have that some action figures, but we're not going to do that. And yeah, we do a Starship Locations Destinations is in production. And will be out right after Lower Decks ends. It's not going to be out by Halloween because it's already the 25th. But we want to make it good. So it ain't going to be out by then. No. Just afterward, probably like early November. So it'll be awesome. It'll be on the other channel. So this is a lot like. This has been a lot like that, and that's awesome. Carno's in it. This is the Cal-Cat episode. I did not write it, but clearly they were inspired directly by, yeah. I actually didn't think of that. You could say that then Mariners, this universe of Lower Decks, is set in the universe of that weird, the Elysian series thing, mirror universe. It's a mirror universe, but not the mirror universe story. And it's set in that, where Locarno would be that. Yeah, no, that's possible. It could be set in that universe. Which would be, and also they reference the COL stuff in this episode, which is fun. So they mention that the Klingon guy is clearly a COL guy from the Jung Swan people. Clearly, the Klingon guy on the planet is clearly that, another jock guy. But yeah, Marshall Sportiest. She's also Mariner is also a Marshall Sportiest. And VC. That makes her more like Sandra, Talisman character. The Talisman character, Sandy Gay Tom. The Talisman character. Makes her more like that too. So they are clearly aware of Sillian realms and have been taking notes. The storybooks and the show. Because they can't have come up with the same thing at the same time. And that's awesome. So why don't they just, for season 5, Paramount, just hire us. And then you can put our names in the credits. Because that would be awesome. Please just hire us. We want to work for Star Trek. Because Strange New Worlds already did a Silly Trek singing episode. I mean, come on, just hire us. Just do it. When I was putting together this episode and editing it, I realized something that really doesn't match up here. In Mariner's backstory, Beckett Mariner specifically. The Lower Decks people who were in their late teens, early 20s, well, Locarno was in his early 20s, because he was clearly a senior and they were freshmen, on the Enterprise D in 2368, were roughly the same age that the Sillian children would have been in 2368. So, given that, 2365, let's say, 3 years earlier, when the beginning of the Academy thing, I would have been 18 in the series, right? So, 2365. So by 2385, I would have been 38. 2385, right? It's 20 years later. So during this series, I would be 38. So let's just you know, and so 52 now. So this series sets in. So this would be 2400 or 2401 now, technically in the Star Trek universe. But yeah, so and that makes, okay, let's say that makes sense because Will Wheaton is the same age as me. So Will Wheaton, the Engine Crusher, the Lower Decks, which would be consistent with a character playing that character her age. However, it doesn't match up with the other one either because she's 10 years younger. Than me. So, the actress. So, she's playing a character who is in her 20s, roughly, now. Mariner cannot be over 30 years old. So, during Wolf 359, which is 2366, she would have been 10 years old. Which means that in 2368... she would have about 10 or 11 years old. Maybe 11. Unless she's a Klingon and ages rapidly and gets to be 11 years old serving on a ship, she wouldn't be serving on the Enterprise as a lower decker. Even if we fudge her age and say she's okay, maybe she's 29. Maybe she's 29 in lower decks. Maybe it's 2383 and she's 84 and she's 29. But even there, it doesn't work. She would be in grade school. She wouldn't know Sita Jaxa at all. Why would she know Sita Jaxa? Now, what they could say is she said friend. She didn't say comrade in Starfleet. So what could be going on, they could still make it work if she was only 28 as a character in the story, set in the 2380s. And it's confusing because the dates, because this series is taking place 20 years before now. It's taking place right after Nemesis. It's 20 years earlier in the series. And in Chimera, we just made it now. It's easier. Starship Locations is now. 2388 for 2016, basically. And it came out in 2019. And 2400 to 2404 now. Just because it was easier that way. So technically, she wouldn't have been Starfleet age at all on the Enterprise D. Mariner, if she was on the Enterprise D and knew Cedo Jaxa, she was a little kid. She was a kid. She was a grade schooler. And that's entirely possible because there's precedent for that. The Enterprise D had children and families on board. Now, Mrs. Mariner and them were serving on board. Also, that would make sense that Riker knew of her. Knew of her mother and all that. They could have been like, he could have known who she was. She could have showed up on the Enterprise D. Which means that Ceto wasn't a comrade, which means that as a child, a teenager in the Pine Hill age, 2 years after the Battle of Wolf 359, she would have been a grade schooler, a junior higher during the Battle of Wolf 359. She wouldn't have, even earlier junior, she wouldn't have been like 5th or 6th grade. In the Battle of Wolf 359, Mariner would not have known any of that stuff, or Wesley, or anything, unless they happened to have been in the schoolroom together or something. But yeah, he would be academy age in college and all that. Which goes to the Pine Hill thing even more so, because at Pine Hill, the school for kids with learning disabilities that Silly Trek and Starship Locations originated from, also had a primary grade and junior high section. So, like the Enterprise, it had that. The adults didn't hang out with the kids too much. That the teenagers didn't hang out with the kids too much. They were separated. There were 2 different quads, and the junior high and the high school were on one side, the kids' schools on the other side. And so there was a fence, but you could walk over there. But yeah, they didn't. So Mariner, let's say Mariner's a Pine Hill student. She was a Pine Hill in the primary grades during the time. And let's say that she water out and and then junior high as us original Sillians went on to, and as Will Wheaton. Let's put it back on the Starship Enterprise. Starship Enterprise going on their thing, and let's put Will Wheaton. Will Wheaton's character, Wesley Crusher. Wesley Crusher entered the Academy in 2369, 8 or 9, somewhere around there. 2366 or so. He was serving on them. When Lower Decks, the episode happens, it's 2368. So we know that. It's in the story. We know when that happened. We know that Ceto was a little older than Will Wheaton's character. We know that Ceto was a little older. Even more reason that a primary school, high schooler Mariner probably wouldn't have encountered her, really. And therefore wouldn't be depressed about her disappearing necessarily, unless she's the Josh Braun of that universe. In which case, they really have watched our stuff, and they know that she's the Josh Braun. She's this kid that died at Pine Hill in 1988. And we were all very distraught about that from 1988. So before the Academy. So if that's the case, then during that would have been 1990 was roughly comparable to 2366. It all goes together. It's not insane, really. It kind of sounds it, but it's not. But yeah, Mariner would have been a child. How would she have known Ceto at all as a child? It'd be like, oh, I'm going to go hang out in 10 Forward. Mention it to her parents. I'm going to go hang out in 10 Forward. I'm 13 or 14. I'm going to go and hang out with the lower deckers that are in their 20s. They're going to like that? Yeah. It's not going to work too well. So, so probably their relationship was more like, okay, there's this ratty child following me around. And I don't know who she is, but she's Freeman's kid, and she's following me around, and it's annoying. And there's the other three over there, but no, didn't met each other until the Cerritos. So just a girl, just Mariner. So it doesn't make sense. Yeah, it doesn't work that she would have known Cito Jaxa. Unless for some reason they let her hang out with the lower deckers, which would be kind of a weird thing for the Starfleet people to do. Unless of course it annoys Picard, and it's Q that let it happen. That would work, because maybe Q was all like, "Oh, you think the Sillian children were annoying? Wait until you meet Beckett Mariner." Ah! No. Or Home Alone, like. Psst. That would be Macaulay Culkin. He could show up. He would have been, roughly that age at that point, yeah. But Macaulay was never in Star Trek, so. Yeah, he'd be in his late 40s. Late 40s now. He'd be the right age. He could show up. But I think they're modeling her, pulling her more toward the actress, which throws off. It still doesn't work. She'd still be 20 or 10 years younger than Will Wheaton. Even if it was, they said that she's the same age as the actress. It wouldn't make Freeman make sense. Freeman is clearly, in the story, Carol Freeman's character, that character is clearly in her late 50s. So in order for her to have, unless she had this kid really young, this wouldn't work at all. So no, that character's got to be in her late 50s in order to have met Riker at all. So it doesn't work. It just doesn't match up. It's 2383 in the story. Yeah, she could. So I'm guessing that the scenario here is kind of like that the lower deckers in the episode Lower Decks were hanging out, and this precocious little ebony kid comes running into the 10 forward, and Guinan's probably, oh, not her again. She runs in, and she's like, "These are my friends, yay!" And they're probably like, "Oh God, it's the kid again." That's the relationship she had with. And Cito was probably like, "Okay, quit being mean to the little kid. It's all right. I'll hang out. I don't know. I'll talk to her a little bit. How about that?" And they do. And Cito talks to her, and then she's immediately killed in a shuttle crash. That's the story. That's got to be the story. If they do that in the final episode, and they're like, "Yeah, Mariner, you were like 12. I wasn't hanging out with you. You were annoying. But you're even more annoying now as an adult. Yay!" But yes, that could be funny. As that's where they go with it. That would be extremely funny. Especially they could have Nick show up, who would be 55 or so now. He'd be a little older. He'd be 55, 56. Even though Robbie Duncan McNeil is actually 60, he was playing someone younger as well. He was playing someone there. Yeah, Nick Locarno is 60. But closer to 60. 57, 58, 60. Yeah, so he was a senior when they were like, the lower deckers were kids. So it's kind of weird that he would have been, they fudged that too. So maybe that's what they're spoofing here by having Mariner. Yeah, that's probably what it was. Precocious little kid runs into 10 forward, Guinan and the thing, and the. Yeah, well, actually. And Worf was probably, all aggressive, and he's like, "The children on the Enterprise, it is annoying. Here, you take care of that." The CEO's like, damn it. If only I could get out of this by... Oh, that'd be fucked up. The only way I can get out of watching that little Beckett kid is to run off on a shuttle thing with Picard. I'm sure it'll be all right. It's like, yeah, maybe she felt guilty about that. Maybe she drove her off. She drove her off the Enterprise. Maybe that's what it was. That would be interesting. She's like, I felt guilty about that happening. I didn't remember the only person that lower deckers that would talk to me, and she blew up. No, that would be like messed up, and that would tie into Marshal Sportius and the Grandmaster who thought she had a friend who blew up. Yeah, there too in a war. So we're assuming that happened, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, even there, if she was a little kid and that other person really was her friend, that person just wanted to rescue her from the, well, she's kind of a friend, I guess. But yeah. So yeah, if that's what happened, she would have been a kid on the Enterprise D. Mariner would have been a child. In that universe, in that context of that timeline. A child. Little kid. Now, by the time the Dominion War happened, she would have been in her Academy years as a cadet. She would have been old enough. 2375, 76. She would have been that would have been her Academy years, the 2370s, which would have lined up with the Talisman children from Marshal Sportius. Would have lined up with them, who are 10 years younger than me. It would have lined up with them. And 10 years younger than Will Wheaton, Wesley Crusher. So, and also, let's not even go into how Jack Crusher Jr. works, because that does not work at all. That actor is way too old looking to be 20 years old. They should have just said, they could have thrown a line in there. They could have said, all right, Jack Crusher, you were actually born between the events of Insurrection and Nemesis, and just never mentioned. And you're actually closer to 30. You were actually born like 2398, 2398 or so, somewhere around there, after the events of that other story. Because otherwise, you don't fit in the timeline at all. After Nemesis, there's only he'd be 19 years old. That doesn't work at all. For this 2401, it doesn't work. But yeah. So yeah, precocious kid on the Enterprise D. That's what it was. If they do that gag, if they have Nick Locarno go, yeah, you were this annoying little twerp that was like, you showed up and you were like a teenager and you were like hanging around at 10 Forward, and yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was annoying. Of course that is, there you go. So, let's see how that works. They need to bring back Sito. Redeem her, yes. Because I'll just kind of give it away. Eventually in the Chimera series, you'll have to see the new series. She makes it to Commander in the other story, in Starship Locations, The Strange Worlds, and then she will rise in the ranks, let's say. I won't give it completely. And yes, yeah.